Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to Interchange. Thank you so very much for joining us. We have lots of interesting things to talk about today. If Wisconsin's public employee unions were so strong and had such a loyal membership, why have the largest ones failed to go after recertification? We'll talk about a presidential race that certainly seems to be shaping up as a race between three guys: Obama, Perry, Romney. And we'll talk a little bit about sports: the Milwaukee Brewers, the Green Bay Packers, and the Chicago Bears. Let me introduce everyone one more time.
The Bears.
Newspaper columnist Joel McNally.
Must we talk about the
Kevin
Bears?
Fischer, longtime broadcaster, political analyst, and oftentimes a fill-in host over on WISN Talk Radio. We have Denise Callaway, the coordinator of business and community partnerships for the Milwaukee Public School System. And joining us, education consultant and local job creation expert, Gerard Randall. Rick Horowitz, along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, let's talk first about the large state public employee unions in Wisconsin. They say they aren't going to jump through the hoops set up by the new collective bargaining laws pushed by Governor Walker, and they won't get recertified. So they, in effect, gave up the right to negotiate with the state over almost anything for the tens of thousands of workers that they represent. But, Kevin, does that mean also that they have lost their power?
Well, they certainly have. I think if there's a consensus on this program, it's that the union's glory days are long gone. Maybe they're regrouping. I think they do see the writing on the wall. At one time, they were extremely powerful. If you were a politician on either side of the aisle, you didn't want to rile them up. You didn't want to upset them, because then they would hold demonstrations and rallies and throw all kinds of attack ads against you. Union members deserve everything that they've negotiated for, but over the years, they have literally bankrupted municipalities, not only in Wisconsin, but all across the nation. The money just isn't there to pay for some of those salaries and for some of those benefits. So I'm not surprised at this. I just believe it's a clear indication that even the unions are starting to realize that their heyday is long gone. It's over with.
I would guess, Joel, that the ones who meet every single day planning the recall against Walker are thinking, no, we haven't lost our power. We're going to show you.
Exactly. Well, there are two things. One is that under the law, why be a union? If you can't negotiate anything, you can't negotiate wages or working conditions. You do have to use your power a different way to undo that unfair law. The other thing is these elections, recertification elections, they're rigged. They're rigged in the law. If someone doesn't vote, that's counted as a vote against the union. It's counted as a no vote. Using those kinds of rules for an election, no president of the United States could be elected. No governor of Wisconsin could be elected, because everyone who doesn't vote is counted as a vote against that candidate. That doesn't make any sense at all. That doesn't make any sense, and they realize it's a hollow exercise. The election itself is fixed, and then if you do win, you win what? The right not to negotiate on wages, working conditions. I mean, it's nonsense. They are using their power exactly the way they have to right now, which is to throw out these horrible laws, to go to the courts, get some of them thrown out because they're clearly illegal or unconstitutional, and use the political power to change the laws, just the way Scott Walker got in there, not telling anybody he was going to do it, but gaining political power and then using his political power to destroy 50 years of collective bargaining rights.
Denise, we used to hear the unions say every time the contracts came up, we want this, we want this, we want this. Are those days completely over?
Well, I mean, they are, because unions aren't able to negotiate for this or this or this or that under the collective bargaining law that's now in place. It's an issue where it makes perfect sense, though it may seem counterintuitive, for the unions to say, you know what, we're not going to go through this process of certifying, because it's the problems with the way the votes are counted. It's a problem in terms of what you're actually able to negotiate under current law. The unions are in much better shape, and it makes much more sense for them to spend their money and their political power and the influence of those people who still, by the way, consider themselves union members, even though their union hasn't been certified, to take a look at things that they can do to begin to change the law and change the people who are in power. It's quite frankly, I think, the only card that they've got really to play.
Is what's happening exactly what the Republican legislators wanted to happen?
Well, it was the Republicans that controlled both houses of the state legislature and a Republican governor that moved it through. And that's where the rub is. It's going to take both houses of the legislature to flip to the Democrats and the governor's mansion to flip to the Democrats in order to undo this. And the likelihood of that happening within the next 10 years is next to nil. I think what you're going to see—
just flip the other way. Why is that so hard to do?
Because in this state, what's now happened is redistricting.
Oh yeah, true. They use the power.
But you know what? No. I just read the Chicago Tribune, and they did down in Illinois to the Republicans the same thing that most here are saying that happened to the Dems in terms of redistricting. You've got some congressional districts in Illinois where you've got Republicans competing against each other for those seats. So you can go from state to state to state. Whatever party is in control of redistricting, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm not foreseeing any dramatic changes in this law happening within the next 10 years. The other piece to this is there's a larger issue at stake here, and that's that how government services are delivered has changed. And those costs are certainly weighing more on the minds of taxpayers. They're looking for some kind of relief, and they're expecting that the shift in the cost of government be borne somewhat more than what it had been in the past by those who work for government, especially if you're talking about benefits and pensions.
The perception is, for some, that the actions by Governor Walker and the Republican legislature were anti-worker. I see this as pro-taxpayer. Most citizens in the state of Wisconsin do not belong to a union, but for the longest time have been paying for some of those lavish benefits and salaries. And they have said through the ballot box, they were fed up.
Most citizens are workers, and they're the working class. They know that teachers and people working for government agencies are not making fortunes. They know that the barons, millionaires today are not teachers. The people are getting laid off as a result of destroying the public opinion.
Well, they know they're not getting the same benefits that the people you just mentioned.
But let's not forget. I mean, these are not benefits that drop from the sky like manna from heaven. These are benefits that were negotiated. In many cases, negotiated in lieu of salary.
Exactly.
So, I mean, these were conscious decisions that Democrats and Republicans made about what they would find to be acceptable. So, if we're going to say this is unacceptable and this is wrong, the blame, if you want to say there is blame, doesn't just lie with the unions. It lies with those politicians who said, you know what? We think this is a good deal, and we're going to go for it.
And as I said earlier, what they negotiated for, they deserve.
Right.
But we want to take away their power to negotiate anything else.
What they have gotten in the past is unaffordable today. It's unsustainable today. The money has just run out.
All right, let's shift gears. The presidential race certainly seems like it's already at the point where we have three choices and only three choices: Barack Obama, Rick Perry, or Mitt Romney. And you really have to wonder if the problems with the economy don't improve, and pretty soon, whether Obama will even remain one of the choices, Denise.
Oh, he will. Of course he will. Of course he will. What happens is
Well, some of the Hillary people are saying,
well, some of the Hillary people were never happy anyway, so, you had to figure they were going to come back in a few years. But, the issue is that it's very hard being an incumbent when you have an economy that is so poor, when you have an economy that driven by actions of your predecessors, was driven to the brink of a recession, to really work to turn that economy back around. It doesn't help when you've got, a significant section of Congress that does not want to do what you think needs to be done to turn this economy around. So you have a president who is really trapped by an economy that is in worse shape than anybody could have imagined, with a recovery that's been terribly slow, and then with Republicans who've not been willing to give him the tools that he needs to move forward. You know, if you want to come after the president in 2012 by saying the economy hasn't improved, at least make sure he had the tools to do what he think needed to be done. And then if his best effort wasn't successful, come after him. It's absolutely legitimate. The problem is he hasn't been able to put forward his best effort because Republicans have stood in the way.
If people do vote with their pocketbooks and the pocketbooks don't improve in the next 6 months, they would have to vote him out.
Well, history tells us that if that's the case, then we will see a change in the White House. Historically speaking, that when you have this level of unemployment, and frankly, the whole world is discombobulated economically. And we have a very different dynamic going on where China seems to hold all the cards. They're a relatively new player, certainly in the last 50 years on the economic scene. So it's going to be a very, very difficult scene for the president to maneuver in if the economy hasn't produced numbers that show unemployment somewhere near 8%. No one certainly is expecting it to drop below 8%. That would be somewhat miraculous for that to happen. Our monetary picture in terms of our debt is going to have to be substantially managed where it's at a par where people have more confidence to come out of their pockets and invest more in job creation. And I'm just not seeing that happen. So you basically have either the Republicans or a third-party candidate that might surface, or even a challenge to the president. That's not unlikely because you've had challenges to sitting presidents in the last 40 years. Gerald Ford had one in Ronald Reagan. We had one with Jimmy Carter and Ted Kennedy. And now you may very easily see a beleaguered president who faces someone even from within his own party. May not be the strongest candidate, but a candidate nonetheless.
You know, I was telling somebody today, you look at Obama, he doesn't look happy. You look at his wife, she doesn't seem very happy. This guy hasn't been in politics so long that it's his entire life. And you do wonder if it is miserable for him, could he say, you know, I want to go back to Chicago. I want to take my kids back to Chicago. I've been president of the United States. You don't think there's any possibility?
Ain't gonna happen. You know, it's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be easy to run in this horrible economy. And there are a whole lot of people that if the economy isn't good, they're gonna blame the president. But I don't think the majority of voters in this country are that dumb. I think, in fact, already you can see evidence that they're starting to figure out what's going on. That you have Republicans who vote consistently at a time when the only thing anybody cares about is the economy and jobs. Jobs and the economy. You have the Republicans consistently voting against the jobs to create jobs to help people in trouble, against unemployment insurance for the people who don't have jobs. You have them willing to take the government to the brink of shutdown again just this past week because they don't want to pay for disaster relief for those people just weeks ago that went through hurricanes and floods and wildfires. You have, anything to throw a monkey wrench into this economy, into this government, and into the lives of ordinary working people. And while, yes, people are unhappy about the economy, they actually like Barack Obama quite a bit. And they really, the polls say that. The polls say exactly that. The polls say that, and you know who they really despise?
Well, it's got to be us. It's got to be us, me and Gerard, right?
And yes, as a matter of fact, it is
it's all our fault.
Mostly the Republicans in Congress who are blocking jobs, who are blocking the economy, who are doing anything they can to destroy the economy of their own country. That doesn't make sense.
Who do the middle-of-the-road Democrats and Republicans go for? Do they go for Obama? Do they go for Perry? Do they go for Romney?
It's certainly not.
It's going to be one of those three.
It's certainly not.
Perry has made a fool of himself on national television.
It's certainly not the guy in the White House right now who's got disapproval rates in the toilet. It's his
not right.
economy.
You're not right.
And you've got members of Congress on the Democrat side of the aisle saying that this guy isn't popular in their districts. It's his economy. His first 2 years, he
Being
had
destroyed by
everything. He had the
Republicans.
Senate, he had the House, he was the president. He put forth stimulus plans that he said had to be implemented to get unemployment below 8%.
And it kept us out of a depression.
It hasn't happened. Bill Clinton was brilliant when he ran for re-election in 1996. He decided to move to the center and won easily. Barack Obama is doing just the opposite. He is becoming more liberal.
Oh, that's not true.
Not true. He just proposed
Creating jobs.
Increasing taxes, more
Creating
spending,
jobs.
making the debt even bigger. He's going even further to the
that's
left.
not true,
Now
because
you
he's
asked
talking
who's
about- No, that's not true.
For heaven's sakes,
That's not true.
$1.5 trillion in new taxes.
Right.
We're
That
talking
adds to the
about-
debt.
Oh, gosh.
His own White House put out a memo this week that said it was going to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs or dollars to create each job. I don't see how anybody in the middle is going to say next year, when we still have 9.5% unemployment, well, gee, this is just hunky dory. I'm better off than I was 4 years ago. Yeah, right. He's got real work on his hands when all the polls suggest any Republican that you put in November of next
within
year
4 percentage
would
points.
beat
You
Barack
got
Obama.
to look at who's opposing jobs and who is trying to create jobs, and that's what people care about. They want job creation, and we got one party voting against.
Well, you're
job
not
creation.
seeing it, and because of that, Barack Obama is, in your words, Joel, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely difficult.
It's not going to be easy for whoever runs for president, because the reality of it is what whoever is going to be the next president is going to face is a continuing economy that continues to be very slow to recover, a global economic market that is really at one of the lowest points it's been in modern history.
It's everybody's fault but Barack's.
No, it's the reality. It's the reality.
It's everybody but me.
It's the reality. You know, and I know reality sometimes is a scary thing for some
George Bush
people.
hasn't been around. George Bush hasn't been around for a while, and he's still being blamed.
You know, I just want to make it clear, you're the only person who mentioned George Bush.
Next year, then it's not my fault. When you're the guy in the hot seat, you know the buck stops here.
How about running against who's against
you
job creation and who's for job creation?
Really stronger to run on than, hey, it ain't my fault.
All right, let's talk about sports for just a few minutes. The Brewers make us all nervous by taking everything pretty much down to the wire. Makes you a little uncomfortable about how they'll do in the postseason play. The big Packer game this weekend against the Chicago Bears, the team we beat for the NFC Championship last year.
Barely.
Yeah, barely. Denise, I know you're a huge Packer fan.
Spell that.
I am.
How are they going to do?
I think they're going to do well. You know, I think this team, what is just absolutely remarkable to me is that it's a team that really continues to be able to find a way to win. It's not always pretty, but they're able to do it. And I think that this team has the capability to continue to do that. I think a real challenge for us is going to be, you know, a real challenge for us will continue
Stopping
to
them
be
from scoring?
how do we continue to play, you know, when we have injuries? I think that's going to be a real challenge for us, particularly with Nick Collins being out for the remainder of the season. But I think this is a team, and not just a team. You know, I don't know that we always give him enough credit. You know, Mike McCarthy is a really bright, smart coach. And as a coach, he's figured out a way to do two things: a way to keep that team motivated and loose, and he's also been able to find a way to develop enough schemes to give that team the ability to win and to have enough weapons in their arsenal and different options where they're able to take advantage of opportunities.
After being somewhat humiliated last year, I do wonder if Cutler's going to shine this weekend.
Well, you know, you can only get so much out of that guy. I think his head is so messed up that he's more of a liability. But he has shown throughout his career that he can also be tough at times, as opposed to last year when, you know, the rap on him was that he could have stayed in. But you know, the Packers are not going to go 16-0. When you're the Super Bowl champs, as we saw last week,
right,
the other teams are gunning for you. Mm-hmm. They've got that X'd on their calendar. They want to beat you. And you have to play better defense. I think this is one of the games that they lose. They're going to lose 4 or 5 games this year. I think they're going to have it rough on the road. And even though I hate the Bears, and when I say hate, I mean in a sports sense, I don't want their plane to go down in flames. I think that the Bears win a close one here. That Packer defense, that secondary is just in trouble.
They've got one advantage, and that they're playing in Soldier Field. Cutler is, I think, so far the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, and he's hurting badly. So if our defense can get to him and rattle him early on, I think it's game over.
They put in their second or third string quarterback who almost beat us in the playoffs
Our
last
problem
year.
is that we've got to deal with Urlacher. And if we allow him to have his game, it'll be a pretty close game.
How about your Brewers?
How about them? I mean, I can't believe the kind of bad-mouthing and negative attitudes you're hearing about them. And given the fact that they're going to, win 95 games this year?
Second best record in baseball, possibly.
Yeah. And you know, there's something about Milwaukee.
They were doing so good, though.
Well, they were
good.
doing so unusually good that no human beings playing a game could continue at that level.
That pace.
But they've got great starting pitching. They've got two closers. They've got a great bullpen. They got a great starting pitching, and that has won even when and we got good bats besides a good offense. But even when the offense isn't coming through, these pitchers manage to win, by 1 run and 2 runs, even if they can only score 1 run or 2 runs. And I'm looking forward to the postseason. That we'll clinch either tonight or tomorrow night or sometime real quick, and we've got time to get ready for it. What has held us up really has been the sort of extraordinary inhuman play that St. Louis has been doing recently.
They're having the Brewers August
until yesterday.
Yeah. But that couldn't have lasted, and they may not. They still probably will not even get into the playoffs, and we will. And we've shown at various times that we can play the Phillies, we can play Atlanta, we can play. We haven't shown we can play New York and Boston, but we can, and we'll get a chance to show that.
How about your Badgers?
Hey, number 7 this week, they South Dakota State. It's the last of the little sisters of the poor that have already been before Nebraska, and I do believe that will be foreshadowing of the game that will be played for the Big Ten football championship, the first championship.
I agree with you, and that's why you should never schedule South Dakota before Nebraska. How does playing the Coyotes get you prepared for the Cornhuskers?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
But you know what? If they're looking at this game as the game to prepare them, they're in trouble.
Right.
But the reality of it is, I think they needed this game. They needed to kind of stack the deck a little light this year. They've got a new quarterback who's, my gosh, has been absolutely remarkable, but he still is new. He's new to the system. So to have a game that should be, knock on wood, an easy win, to help build that confidence, to continue to build that melding of the team, I think is something that's critically important.
But if I'm a season ticket holder, I'm really not happy.
But if you're an alumni, you are, because you like to see them win.
It's great that they're winning, but you'd rather have them beat teams that are respectable. And if I'm going to pay that kind of money for my season tickets, I don't want San Diego State,
but the reality of it is,
South Dakota, Illinois Wesleyan, or Indiana State.
Hey. But the reality of it is, that's not the way that college football at the major league level is paid anymore. It's just not.
Well, if you can't wait for the rock'em sock'em of the Packers-Bears game, there's always the mayhem of Washington politics. Rick Horowitz has heard the latest outbreak of rhetorical overkill, and he's been taking note. Rick.
I call this one How to Be a Warmonger, a class warmonger. When you notice that the folks on top are grabbing all the breaks, while the rest of us are twitching with the economic shakes. If you even raise the prospect of correcting those mistakes, that's class warfare. When you look around and figure that the country's up for sale, and you fret that K Street cronies have their thumbs on every scale, while the worst of Wall Street schemers never spend an hour in jail. That's class warfare. When the riches trickling down don't seem to make it to the poor, and you see the hardship all around but never see a cure. If you sense the gentle fragrance of a pile of horse manure, that's class warfare. When you worry that the game is rigged for just a chosen few, And the winner's circle never has a spot for folks like you. If you wonder, is there nothing that our government can do? That's class warfare. When you listen to the talking heads and fight the urge to scream, when we're all in this together, sounds eccentric and extreme. When you mourn the tens of millions who've forgotten how to dream, that's class warfare. So you really ought to bite your tongue and keep those words unsaid. And you really need to sweep that nasty language from your head. Because there's just one game the victors play and just one phrase they dread. Class warfare.
Thanks, Rick, and thank you so much for watching. Stay warm. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.